Hello guys, my name is Emily. I'm an undergraduate student studying psychology, and I'm also a personal advocate for the Humanizing Death Row initiative. Today I'm going to be talking about the critical race theory and how it relates to the death penalty, which unfortunately is still legal in 27 out of the 50 United States today. So let's start off with a simple definition of what critical race theory is from Google. So according to Google, critical race theory is a scholarly framework that argues racism and individual prejudice is not just an individual factor in the United States, but it is a systematic one. So in other terms, racism just doesn't affect people on an individual level, it's embedded within the American systems and values. And unfortunately today in the United States, specifically in more of the conservative states such as Texas and Florida, are really pushing for critical race theory not to be taught in schools. And as a student who likes to learn about anything and everything, this just signals to me how important it is to know about what critical race theory is. A quick example of what racism in the American justice system is the differentiation between crack and cocaine. So crack and cocaine are the same thing. However, crack is used to racially profile Black African Americans, and cocaine is used to racially profile white Americans. And this bias and prejudice can be seen clearly within our American justice system. So for Black African Americans who were found guilty of having or using crack, they were sentenced to longer sentences and harsher punishments compared to their white counterparts. And more recent research has even pointed out the fact that Caucasian Americans who have an addiction with crack are seen as medical health issues, whereas Black African Americans who have an addiction to crack is seen as criminal. So as you can see, this is just one example of how the American justice system is heavily biased and over-representative of the Black and marginalized communities compared to their white counterparts. And this unjust bias that favors white people is evidently so seen in the death penalty. According to this and many researchers, the death penalty is actually more favored by white people. However, the people who are on death row and are receiving sentences for the death penalty are disproportionately not white. These researchers have also found that attitudes towards the death penalty are also direct reflections of people's values. However, having a difference in personal values should not mean the death penalty for somebody else, because personal values are formed and reinforced by your communities. So if you choose to surround yourself with people who think like you and look like you, you're going to have similar values that represent that. And these researchers also found, and I'm going to quote this word for word from my paper here, their findings show that 1/3 of the racial divide in support for the capital punishment could be attributed to white racism. The effect of racism in support for the death penalty is so robust that it has been studied in other countries outside the US, such as France, Spain, the UK, has also found that hostility towards ethnic and marginalized communities also predicted the support for capital punishment. So, the more racist the country is, the more likely they are to support capital punishment. And this should be a very telling sign of the US justice system. So, the connection between critical race theory and the US justice system is vital. So, the US usage of the death penalty does not seek justice.